um, I remember exploring and looking at some of the information that SES. I knew nothing about SES when I came to work in March of 2001. I didn't even know who Dr. Geisler was. So I was just walking into a wonderful job. But I saw the verse, John 10:35, and knew that the bedrock, one of the bedrock foundational points was the inerrancy of Scripture. And of course, every apologist group eventually will quote 1 Peter 3:15 and use that word defense, showing that the apologia, that's where we get the word apologetics. But when I was thinking about it, even today, that verse combines the parts that were most important to both Dr. Rhodes and Dr. Geisler, with the apologetics, obviously, with Dr. Geisler, and then Dr. Rhodes. His strength was evangelism, and always was until the day he died. And that verse, 1 Peter 3:15, I had not looked at it carefully and saw that, yes, the apologetics is there, the defense, but that word being prepared incorporates evangelism, because what are you going to be prepared for unless you're going to be telling somebody about what you're defending? So that 1 Peter 3:15 is more than just for apologetics. And this may be something basic other scholars know, but it was one thing that stood out to me as I was reflecting on it this morning. And as others had probably mentioned in the beginning, with very, very humble beginnings, as we used to say, 2 trailers, a shed, and a gravel parking lot. And we had borrowed classrooms from the church and go over there for our classes. The student lounge that we had when there were students on campus was one small portion of that, one of those trailers. And 2 of the offices, the staff offices, looked out into it. And on one side was some mailboxes, this wooden looked like a bookcase maybe, with a lot of slots in it. And every semester we had to change the names on the mailboxes. It was rather humble way to get mail, and which brings up everything was done by mail. If you were a local student, the professors would return your work in the mailboxes. And what was funny to look back on now, Dr. Howe was the director of the distant education. Everybody wore more than one hat. Well, we still do, but back then it was like when I came, Dr. Richard Howe was a teacher, and he was the registrar. And then Dr. Tom Howe was a teacher, and he was also the director of the distant education. And he'd mail huge boxes of cassette tapes to the students of the recorded lectures. And when the students were all finished, they had to ship them back. And the assignments were always mailed in and back and forth. He had to provide pre-stamped envelopes. So it was very basic the way we functioned. But we were just all on intent. That was something that was special, and still is, that everyone was intent on getting the job done, no matter what it took to get it done. And the whole idea was to train and teach, disciple, so that more and more people would be prepared to defend the gospel. We celebrated birthdays, and I remember celebrating Dr. Geisler's 70th birthday, trying to surprise him. No, you couldn't surprise him, but we tried in there. But one thing that it was very special about Dr. Geisler, looking back at the founders, you asked what my memories were there, was he was very approachable, and I found it very just endearing that when a prospective student would come to visit, he would just very casually talk to them. Any questions they had, he'd get into deep discussions or whatever they wanted to know about the seminary, and he'd take them to lunch, and that would floor them. They were just so surprised that the president would take them to lunch. And in some cases, he would invite them, if they were from out of town, to come and spend whatever period of time they were in Charlotte in his home. He and Barbara built a house that had a bonus room where guests could come and stay. And that was another thing that really impressed the students. And some of them came maybe questioning whether they wanted to come to this little school on the gravel parking lot. But when they saw the quality of the conversation, the minds, the people, the desire to really teach and be involved in their lives, it just won them over. It was very special. I think one other thing that stood out to me from the beginning and continues to is the strength and the consistency of holding to the inerrancy of Scripture. And Dr. Geisler actually stepped down from one theological society because it was wandering away from what he perceived as that solid inerrancy, and went on with other like-minded scholars to form ISCA, another scholarly theological society, International Society of Christian Apologetics. And about the same time, he wrote that book, Battle for God. Well, it didn't take me long after I was here to realize that I was getting into a job that wasn't just a job. It was a wonderful job. I was excited about it. Really wanted to dive into it, but it was more than a job, and it was more than just something we were doing, but we were here in a spiritual battle of training people to fight in that battle effectively. And I counted it a privilege to be able to serve alongside of the SES family. And that's what it is, a family as well as a school.